Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates first edition of Seoul Leadership Conclave in New Delhi. Says Seoul must aim to become the world's leading institution for leadership development. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar meets his counterpart from China and others on the sidelines of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg. And as Israel simmers over the Hamas failing to release the body of Shiri Bibas as agreed, its armed wing says it will free 6 more hostages on Saturday. Well, this is a bit of a special edition of DD India Live because we're focusing on Germany because it's set to go for a snap national election on Sunday following the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition, with the outcome expected to reshape both national and European politics. Friedrich Merz, leader of the conservative CDU/CSU alliance, is the frontrunner campaigning on tax cuts and deregulation while striving to regain votes from the far-right AfD. Alice Weidel of the AfD has disrupted the political landscape, gaining momentum with a hardline stance on immigration and calls for stricter border controls. Incumbent Chancellor Olaf Scholz, representing the SPD, faces an uphill battle for re-election as coalition disputes and economic woes have eroded his public support. And Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck of the Greens is pitching a green energy transition, though his climate policies have received mixed reactions amid economic uncertainties. And as I said, Germany is heading to national polls on Sunday in an election that was called 6 months ahead of time. Chancellor Scholz's coalition fell apart after differences over key issues, which led to him losing a confidence vote in the German federal parliament, the Bundestag. Now, here's a report with more details on the European nation's top legislature.
Germany is all set for crucial federal elections on February 23 to elect its next chancellor. These snap polls were called by the Chancellor Olaf Scholz when his coalition government fell apart last year. Let's understand the parliament structure in this report. The German Bundestag, the national parliament of the Federal Republic of Germany, stands as a cornerstone of democratic governance. Its seat is the Reichstag building in Berlin. Rooted in history and evolving through time, it plays a crucial role in shaping the laws and policies of the nation. Established post-World War II, the Bundestag embodies Germany's commitment to democratic principles, transparency, and public engagement. The Bundestag's origins trace back to 1949, following the establishment of the Federal Republic of Germany. It succeeded the Reichstag, which was dissolved during the Nazi regime. The post-war period saw the formation of a new democratic system with the Bundestag as its legislative heart. In the current electoral term, Parliament is composed of 733 members. This is the 20th electoral term since the establishment of the Federal Republic in 1949. The President of the Bundestag holds the second highest office of state in Germany after the federal president. Biabu Bias has been President of the Bundestag since October 2021. The number of seats a party has in the Bundestag depends on its results in the elections. The more votes a party gets in the Bundestag elections, the more seats it gets. Elections are generally held every 4 years. The last election was in autumn 2021. Voters will have 2 decisions to make. Their first vote determines their choice of constituency candidate, with the candidate who wins the most votes being elected, regardless of how his or her party performs overall. These constituency seats ensure that every region in Germany is represented in the Bundestag. With their second vote, voters determine the relative strengths of the parties in the Bundestag. The second vote is therefore the decisive vote, as it dictates which parliamentary group or coalition of parties will have a majority, allowing them to elect their preferred candidate as federal chancellor. If a party fails to meet the requirement of receiving more than 5% of all votes cast nationwide, also known as the 5% clause, it is not represented in the Bundestag, unless the party has won at least 3 constituency seats, in which case it is taken into account in the distribution of seats to the party's lists in the individual Länder. The German Bundestag exemplifies the nation's dedication to democratic values and effective governance. As a dynamic institution, it continues to adapt and respond to contemporary challenges while upholding the principles of representation, accountability, and public service. Bureau Report, DD India.
So let's now talk about these critical German elections. We are joined by Professor Umar Salma Bawa, Center for European Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you for joining us, Professor. Now, how critical are the elections in Germany this time around, not just for Germans, but also for all Europeans and indeed the world?
Good evening, Gautam. I think Germany is having elections at a very important time, not only in its history, but in the regional and global context. Remember, these elections normally would have taken place in September of this year, but due to the coalition government breaking down, Chancellor Scholz had to call for snap elections. And these are happening at a time, or literally a month away after, President Trump has been sworn in Washington. And that means the tenor of the discourse has already started shifting. The last few days, you've seen a very important meeting take place in Riyadh between Washington and Moscow to discuss the outcome of the war in Ukraine. In this context, I think the important point which stands out is, where is Europe in all of this? Germany at this point literally not there on this political map of discussions because it is in election mode. And even after election mode, it is going to take a very significant amount of time before a new government comes into office. That means the new coalition, the nature, what it is, who is going to come on board, what are the critical issues, how are they going to negotiate, all of that is discussed extensively in an election, post-electoral compact. So at this point, I think the Europe is going to be watching with bated breath as to how does Germany turn, given that in the internal political developments are also showing a shift in political preferences of the voters.
Yes, certainly. And winds of change towards the right have been sweeping several nations in Europe and many other nations across the world as well. Is Germany next?
So at this point, like you said, Germany next. Well, I mean, the swing of the right, is already visible across Europe, and Germany is no exclusion to the fact. What is interesting is the numbers that the AfD is polling. It's currently at about 1 to 22%. It's polling right behind the CDU, which is polling at this point at about 32%. So in that sense, it's the second largest, but no single party will be able to form the government. The question then is, what will be the next coalition going to be looking like? Already on record, both the CDU, CSU and the SPD has already said that they are not going to have an alliance with the right. So I think that clearly indicates that, how these numbers will then play out is going to be important. But then it also reflects, I think, the fact that people are voting right does not indicate that everybody is supporting it. There could also be a protest vote. And remember, it's very easy for parties at this point to play on the perception of the voters. So how they are doing it, who is going to win the battle of perception is what is going to play out on Sunday.
Let's talk about the AfD a little bit more, because it has gained a lot of traction in recent months before the snap election. But to what extent has its rise and even that of the far left BSW muddied the waters for the elections producing a stable government in Germany after Sunday?
So I think the fact that if, for every 5 or 6 voters, there's one vote going to the AfD, I think you've got to critically ask the question is what is happening in the domestic sphere. As you're pointing out and playing on the screen, economy and finance is important. At this point, the most important number one factor is, of course, migration and what it does to the whole issue of identity politics. Germany, in the last almost, since 2015, if you say take till now, that means in a decade, 2 major refugee crises have taken place in Europe, 2015 and then 2022. And this has meant that Germany, under Merkel, remember, had taken an open door approach to taking in refugees and absorbed more than 1 million refugees. Refugees which came from different parts of the world, but more so from Syria and Iraq, and then subsequently, of course, now refugees coming from Ukraine. And so very distinct identities and cultures. There has been a big push by the AfD to talk about how this is, transforming Germany. We should not have these outsiders. Numbers should be controlled. And then as, economic figures go down, it's very easy to point to the refugees as the source of all crisis. On the other hand, in Germany, there's also a big demand for skilled labor in the employment sector. And so all of this is going to be playing itself out in terms of, how is it that the parties are going to pitch for a balance between migration, between identity and economy and employment.
I mean, there's talk of re-migration that's only gained further ground because of the kind of incidents that have been taking place, rammings happening, the latest one in Munich, just ahead of the conference.
Right. So, migration is about going, and this re-migration, or literally about repatriating people back. There's a talk about people who have come in should go back or be returned. This is a big push which is happening. And clearly now the parties are going to be pushing for it. AfD would really pitch, for the migrants to be sent back. Remember, Germany is also part of that G7 group, the top performing economies of the world. If
which will soon be G8 maybe.
It would also need to have very skilled labor force coming in. So this is going to be that fine balance between sending out people who they believe they don't want, but at the same time being an attractive source of destination for attracting highly skilled people to come into Germany. And that ties in with the German economy and making it more competitive again, something which then ties up with what Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, has said of returning competitiveness back to Europe, which also ties in with what President Macron along with Prime Minister Modi was saying in Paris just about 10 days back about AI and making Germany and Europe, or Europe and Germany, competitive again. So I think there is a fine line balancing between what kind of people you want and whom do you want to send back.
Okay. And is there also a West versus East Germany scenario playing out here?
Definitely. I think you can see that, while a lot of effort has gone in, it's now more than 30 years since the unification of Germany in 1990. But that fine divide and at the level of the mind between what has been often called as the Westies and the Aussies continues to persist. The far-right parties have been extremely successful in gaining ground, in the eastern states or the newer states which have joined Germany in 1990. But that should also not take off the attention from the fact that even in other states, the far right has made grounds, and that also points to a deep discontentment with the current state of politics in Germany.
So considering all this, and there's a lot of stuff that we haven't really talked about because we have limited time, how challenging would the job be for the next Chancellor of Germany, considering these circumstances, some of which we've talked about, both at home and abroad, and how soon will everyone get to know who's going to lead Europe's largest economy, the world's third largest?
Okay, so I think let me start with the last part. How soon? It depends on what kind of results we get on Sunday night. Which is the strongest at this point. Of course, the CDU looks to be leading in the race. It is polling ahead. Will it make an alliance with the Social Democrats? That means we will get the classic, the two big parties coming together, the grand coalition taking place. That's something which the people also sometimes don't want. It means it cuts the divide between the political differences of both the parties. On the other hand, that could be a safe bet. It is a formula which has worked in the past. Negotiating the political compass in terms of the contract could take a time from anything about 1 month to even 3 months. Cannot be said. It all depends on how soon the parties come together to work out a political deal in terms of the governance. And the third point, of course, I think if you look at the backdrop of what has happened in the last 1 week, with President Trump announcing tariff Vice President Vance addressing the Munich Security Conference, giving a wake-up call to Europe and saying the problem lies within. And the fear that Germany and Europe is going to be left alone to face an unprecedented, unpredictable security landscape where they will have to take care for their own security is extremely high on the agenda now.
Yes, and Germany will have a proportionately heavier load to bear as well if things go as they seem to be heading. Well, challenging circumstances. Professor Umusalma Bawa, thank you so much for joining us to talk about it at the moment. Rest we'll talk about after Sunday, I guess. Now, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Ukraine Zelensky terms his Kyiv meeting with US envoy Keith Kellogg productive amidst war of words with Donald Trump.
Timeless, boundless, and infinite. The essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic, world's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said on Friday that Israel would make Hamas pay for failing to release the body of hostage Shiri Bibas as agreed. This comes after Israeli specialists found out that one of the 4 bodies handed over by the Hamas on Thursday was of an unidentified woman and not Shiri Bibas.
We will act with determination to bring Shiri home, along with all our captives, both the living and the fallen, and ensure that Hamas pays the full price of this cruel and evil violation of the agreement.
And in response, the Hamas has said that it was likely the body of captive Shiri Bibas had got mistakenly mixed up with others who were killed and buried under the rubble in Gaza. This has come after Israel said that one of the bodies handed over by Hamas on Thursday was not that of Bibas as Hamas had claimed. Hamas handed over bodies, it said, were of 4 hostages, including 3 members of the Bibas family, Shiri Bibas and her 2 young sons, along with an elderly captive. Meanwhile, the Hamas on Friday said it will release Israeli hostages Elia Cohen, Omer Shem Tov, Tal Shoham, Omer Venkat, Hisham Al-Sayed and Avera Mangisto on Saturday. Hisham and Avera, who entered the Gaza Strip a decade ago and are civilians, have been held there since that time. A U.S. envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, has met President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv. Following the meeting on social media platform X, Zelensky said that he had a detailed and productive conversation with Kellogg about prisoners of war, effective security guarantees that would be part of any peace agreement, and the battlefield situation. Zelensky said it was crucial that both the Kellogg meeting and cooperation with Washington in general were constructive, and added that the talks restore hope in terms of achieving an agreement with Washington. However, the Ukrainians also said that a press meet that was scheduled after the meeting was cancelled at the request of the Americans.
General Kellogg, our talks restore hope. We need strong agreements with America, agreements that will really work. I gave instruction to work fast and very much even-handedly. Economic interest and security interest should always go hand in hand, and the details of the agreement are important. The better the details are drafted, the better the result.
Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the School of Ultimate Leadership or Soul Conclave 2025, the first of its kind in New Delhi on Friday. The two-day leadership conclave will serve as a premier platform where leaders from diverse domains like politics, sports, arts and media, the spiritual world, public policy, business and the social sector share their inspiring life journeys and discuss aspects relating to leadership. Prime Minister Modi said Seoul will develop critical thinking, risk-taking and solution-driven mindsets. He said he is confident that the institution will produce leaders prepared to work amid disruptive changes.
आने वाले समय में लीडरशिप सिर्फ पावर तक सीमित नहीं होगी। लीडरशिप के रोल्स में वही होगा जो इनोवेशन और इम्पैक्ट की कैपेबिलिटीज हो। देश के इंडिविजुअल्स को इस नीड के हिसाब से इमर्ज होना पड़ेगा। सॉल्व इन इंडिविजुअल्स में क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, रिस्क टेकिंग और सॉल्यूशन ड्रिवन माइंडसेट डेवलप करने वाला इंस्टीट्यूशन होगा। आने वाले समय में इस संस्थान से ऐसे लीडर्स निकलेंगे जो डिसरप्टिव चेंजेस के बीच काम करने को तैयार होंगे।
The Indian leader also said that this institution will play a pivotal role in India's journey towards becoming a developed nation and that it will build leaders with capabilities for innovation and impact.
The School of Ultimate Leadership की स्थापना विकसित भारत की विकास यात्रा में एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण और बहुत बड़ा कदम है। इस संस्थान के नाम में ही सोल है ऐसा नहीं है। ये भारत की सोशल लाइफ की सोल बनने वाला है और हम लोग जिससे भली भांति परिचित है, बार बार सुनने को मिलता है, आत्मा। अगर इस सोल को उस भाव से देखें तो ये आत्मा की अनुभूति कराता है।
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on the sidelines of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg today. The External Affairs Minister highlighted the significance of dialogue even amid challenges in bilateral ties. He acknowledged India and China's efforts in preserving the G20's role in a polarized world and noted key developments since their last meeting in Rio, including high-level visits and discussions on border stability and broader diplomatic engagements.
External Affairs Minister and Chinese Foreign Minister, His Excellency Wang Yi, met on the sidelines of G20. The meeting lasted for about 30 minutes. The two ministers reviewed developments in our bilateral relationship since their last meeting in November. Specifically, the management of peace and tranquility in border areas, Kailash Mansarovar Yatra resumption, trans-border rivers, flight connectivity and travel facilitation were discussed. There was also an exchange of views on G20 and SCO.
In a significant diplomatic engagement, the foreign ministers of India, Australia and France also convened for a trilateral meeting in Johannesburg on Friday. The meeting brought together India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar with the Australian Foreign Minister Senator Penny Wong and French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot to discuss shared strategic interests in the Indo-Pacific region. During the discussions, the three leaders emphasized their commitment in strengthening each other's positions through enhanced cooperation. Now, India's private sector has performed well in the month of February. This has come to light in the data of the HSBC Flash India Composite Purchasing Managers Index. The latest data shows that in the last 6 months, the highest growth has been recorded in both manufacturing and services sectors. The composite PMI output reached 60.6 in February. A PMI figure of 50 or above indicates that demand is increasing in the economy. According to the survey conducted by S&P Global, record growth was also seen on the employment front. which is a positive sign for the country's economy. In February, the PMI of the service sector also reached 61.1. The increase in new business orders was the main reason behind the growth of the services sector. Adding to this, in the month of February, new orders reached a 6-month high. And time now to get to some sports updates as well. South Africa opener Ryan Rickelton slammed a century against Afghanistan in their ongoing match at the Champions Trophy. South Africa won the toss and opted to bat against Afghanistan in match number 3 of the ongoing Champions Trophy 2025 on Friday in Karachi. South Africa announced that star wicket-keeper batter Henrik Klaasen has been rested following a left elbow injury. South Africa lost the wicket of Tony de Zorzi early, but Rickelton, who slammed a century along with captain Themba Bavuma, who scored a 50, ensured their recovery. And they have set a target of 316 runs for the loss of 6 wickets for Afghanistan, who, well, are known to cause upsets in the past. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app.
The essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic, world's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
A confluence of spirituality, knowledge and culture. The progenitor of democracy, Bihar holds a special place in India's history. Treasure the journey of enlightenment. Travel the holy circuit trails of multiple faiths. Experience the legacy of ancient India. And an educational lineage that produced some of the greatest luminaries of the time. Discover a multitude of art and craft forms. Savor the true flavors of the land and enjoy the sights and sounds of iconic festivals. Delve deeper into the natural beauty of this land, enriched by the sacred river Ganga. Today, Bihar's infrastructure is at the heart of its transformation. Poised to take a big leap with initiatives in agriculture, education, tourism, and information technology. An ode to a remarkable history. Bihar truly offers a glimpse into a captivating past and vibrant present. Welcome to Bihar.